Bonjour, and today I'm in Macapá in northern Brazil, and I say bonjour because I think that's how they say hello here, and in Brazilian is bom dia, but here it's bom dia, and I think it's because of the distance between Macapá being in North Brazil and French Guiana. I think there's some French links there. Definitely in Oiapoque on the border there was a French tinge to the Brazilian speakers, and where I am now is at the middle of the world, Meio do Mundo, in Macapá. In Macapá is where the equator passes through. It's the only city in Brazil that the equator passes through. And behind me here is a football stadium where one half is on one side of the equator and the other half is on the other side. And as I'm standing now, I'm roughly in the middle of the equator. Not exactly. Give me 10 seconds and it will be. So this is the exact middle of the equator. So this side of me is one side of the equator, and the other half, the away fans, they'll be on the other side. As far as I can see from where I am now, there's no entrance into the stadium, but I'm going to do what I usually do and do a full lap around to see if I can get a look at the pitch and anything else really. I think Macapá, the team themselves, I think they're in the 4th Brazilian division. So I've got some way to go to get to the top flight. I've turned the first corner around the stadium and I'm very grateful to have found a bit of shadow. The reason I'm wearing a coat in the Amazon Amapa state region of Brazil in 30-degree weather today is because yesterday we had torrential downpours and there was a yellow weather warning yesterday, today and tomorrow, advising people not to go outside, not to leave chargers plugged in, etc, etc. But this morning the weather seemed okay. It's supposed to rain around midday, so you never know, I might get a more exciting view of the Amazon River later on. I found an entrance on the first side I was walking down. There is a athletics track around the outside of the football pitch. The capacity looks around 2,000-3,000 maybe, up to 5 I would say. There's the main stand, and that's the only stand. And here is the pitch with the athletics track and the football goals. So as I speak now, I am on one side of the equator. And if you imagine the north of Brazil and the equator coming in to the north of Brazil from the right-hand side in Macapá at the top right of Brazil, I'm currently on the upper half of the equator, the northern side, and on the other side of the pitch is the southern half of the equator. And I can't leave here without walking towards the halfway line to get a view of it. And I'm about 10 seconds away. This stadium is called the Estádio Milton de Souza Correa. There's the halfway line, the middle of the pitch. And you can see one dugout is in one side of the world and the other dugout is in the other side of the world. I can see someone telling me maybe to leave the area, so I'm going to start walking out. The gates were all open, so I'm not sure if I caught that on camera, but I think he's walking around the other side of the stadium now. Probably going to tell me to leave.
Você tinha que ir lá pela frente para falar com o vigilante, para autorizar você gravar, fazer as fotos, entendeu?
Okay.
Aí você entrou aí, você quer gravar aqui? Você quer gravar aqui dentro ou não?
Não entendo, sorry. Mi português é não bueno. Seulement de voir, autoriser.
Não, você quer gravar, é isso?
Sim.
Pode, não tem problema.
Sim, sim. Ok, gracias.
Você quer ficar aqui gravando?
Sim.
Pode.
Sim.
Se
Okay?
você quiser,
I can take a photo?
pode.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Não tem problema não.
Parce que c'est Meio do Mundo, c'est interessante.
Pode ser, não, pode
Sim.
ser.
Alright, that was pretty funny. I didn't have a clue what he was saying, and I'm leaving now, but he actually seemed alright in the end. I'm not sure if he was unhappy with me at first. The sense I got was that he was fine with me taking photos at the end there. Maybe he just wanted me to ask him before I came in or something, but there was no one there. You can see the entrance actually just here. I just walked through there basically. No one there. But I've been in there now and I've managed to see the equatorial halfway line. So I'm happy with that. And I'm now back in the park where you saw the Meio do Mundo sign behind me. And behind that sign is a park with sort of statues and ornaments of the local wildlife, such as these. You can see parrots there, crocodiles, crabs, lizards, and in the distance some large insects, along with the birds. Now this is actually a play area, and just to the left of it, this monument here signifies the equator. Another angle of the park with the creatures behind me. Well, not the real creatures, but, well, imagine if you came up and saw a lizard that big. There's lots of dragonflies flying around here, and this monument behind me is the Marco Zero do Equator. I'm going to walk around there, take a closer look. So I did end up coming to this monument first, the Praça Povos do Meio do Mundo, the peoples of the middle of the world square, and I'm just standing in the shadow at the moment. It basically pays respects to the people who gave rise to the land of Amapa, Macapá. The Indians, the blacks, the Cabocios, the riverside populations. There's 1,400 square meters of green area here. And just last year, in February 2024, Macapá turned 266 years old. The capital of the middle of the world. And apparently the land that I'm standing on where this monument has been built, it used to be just dirt area, and they built over it, they built quite a nice green area as well to the side with flowers and trees and shrubs. And this here, you can see the monument representing the different communities. And on each side, a different community is represented. As I come up these stairs behind me, you will see the monument signifying the equator come into your shot. And here it is. So I have made it to the middle of the world, the equator, and this signifies the equator here, this line behind me. So as I straddle it, I am now 50-50 in the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Along this line it says Marco Zero do Equador, latitude 000, hemisfero sul, Macapá, Amapa. So I've now left the equator and it's still sunny, it's not raining. If it was raining I would get a taste of the Amazon, but because it's sunny I'm getting a taste of the equator. It is really hot. And now I am at the Amazon River, probably the most famous river in the world, the Amazon River, and this is the entrance to it from the Atlantic Ocean, the Brazilian side, alongside the city of Macapá behind me. This is the promenade. Now Macapá is known for being the city where the Amazon meets the equator, and this is exactly what I've done today. I've met both of them for the first time. Macapá itself gets its name from the bacapera tree, which is a tree with berries on them, bacapa berries, and macapaba is a word which means rich in bacaba, the berry, and the area in the state of Amapa, Macapá, is rich in this kind of tree, and that's where the name Macapá comes from. So just over my left shoulder here, I'm not sure if it will be the left shoulder on the video, is the invisible line, so to speak, where the equator comes through the Amazon River and enters into Macapá. Just over there. I don't think you'll be able to see it, unless they've marked it in the Amazon River, but that's probably quite hard to do. This is the place where the Amazon meets the equator, just to my left here, where the Amazon pulls out one of its hands and shakes hands with the equator coming in from the city of Macapá. The land behind me in the distance, which you may just about be able to see, foregoes the Baía do Vieira Grande, which is another river on the other side of the land, and then beyond that is the city of Bethlehem, I believe, in Portuguese, which is around 300 kilometers from Macapá, and there are sailing boats that go between the two through the Amazon River and around. And if I was to follow the Amazon River in towards the Amazon rainforest, it would head towards Santarém, Manaus, and etc., etc., going towards the other side of South America, where you find Iquitos in Peru. This is what the streets of Macapá look like. And it's another day here, and I believe Macapá is the city in Brazil with the second most homicides per 100,000 people, clocking up 71 deaths due to homicide. You can see behind me the Amapa, the state letters where Macapá is situated. And I'm going now to visit the Fortaleza de São José, if I've pronounced it correctly. And it's a fort behind me here, and it doesn't look particularly appealing at the moment. I'm not sure what they're building. But this fort is, I believe, known as one of the 7 wonders of Brazil, not the world, so it's a bit of a knockoff. And it's the biggest Portuguese fort, not in Portugal, and it's situated right on the Amazon River, just over there. I believe the entry is free, so I'm going to take a look inside. And this is what the entrance looks like here, through that white building, heading into the fort walls. I'm inside now, and this is one of the best preserved monuments from the Brazilian colonial period. Built between 1764 and 1782, it was built to defend from a possible French invasion. You may have seen the picture that I put in just before this video, that it's actually in the shape of a sort of star-shaped fort. Now I'm standing roughly in the middle of that star at the moment, and around each edge are the points of the star. The area of the fort is 84,000 square meters, and the walls surrounding it are 8 meters tall. So the reason it took almost 2 decades to build is because the indigenous people were suffering with malaria at the time, and the majority of the slaves that were brought over from Africa to help build the fort, some of them insisted on fleeing, and the chief was actually from Africa himself in terms of the creation of the fort, and lots of these African slaves unfortunately died during the process. The workers had a reputation for being lazy at the time, but when it was finally finished, the fort mounted over 60 guns. However, more importantly and more famously, 8 garritas. And you can see one of these garritas ahead of me. These are white turrets that grace the tips of the corner bastions on many a Portuguese and Spanish star fort in this era. The Fortaleza de São José could very well be the world leader in the number of garritas on a single fort. It has one at each bastion tip, but also one in the centre of each curtain wall, save for the landward-facing western wall, which is protected by the ravelin. And I'm now walking to one of these garritas behind me, and you can see the Amazon River behind as well. Now there's some military training going on here as well. After its use in the 18th century, this fort was left to deteriorate for decades, and when Brazil gained independence from Portugal in 1824, a few decades after that, the war officers remembered the fort basically, and they sent some officers to check on it and realised it was being used by local farmers for managing livestock at the time. At the end of the 20th century, it was decided by Brazilians, locals, and those officials that it would be a good thing to restore the fort to an extent anyway. There's still a bit of work to do here, I can tell, but it's definitely a nice attraction on the Amazon River, and there's very little information inside the fort. For example, plaques of information describing its history. There's no guides to take you around, so it's very much just walk around and find out what you can about it in your own time, really. So I'm now inside the white building that you would have seen during my entrance into the fortress. There's the boardwalk I came in through. A lot of the buildings here are closed off within the city walls, but where they aren't closed off, it's still not particularly interesting inside. Looks like there's lots of works going on here, or there were, and then they just stopped. So I'm leaving the fort now. I'm going to head to the market, which is just a couple of minutes away on the other side of the main road. Maybe not yet. Obrigado. So I'm in the market now, and a bit about the history. It was started to be made in 1952 and it was finished in 1953, and in the same year, 1953, the federal state of Amapa was created, which is why it's quite significant in the history of Macapá. And also in 1953, 29 Japanese families arrived by boat, attracted by the rubber creation here, and they ended up staying here and developed the agricultural activities and helped with the market stalls as well. And you can probably see by the video that I did when I was walking around, there isn't much fresh produce on here, but they do sort of shoe repairs. There's lots of snack bars, especially on the top floor, butchers and fishmongers, though I think on a Sunday it's less busy than it normally is. Looks like there's a massage room here as well. I'm now in the Diocese Catedral de São José, the St. Joseph Cathedral in Macapá, the main cathedral in the city. It said it was closed, but I thought I would chance it anyway, and it is open today. There's some cleaners in here. I haven't been told to leave, and it's very calming in here. And interestingly, well, at least to me, the thing that I found of interest was this Jesus behind me. Rather than seeing his wrists being nailed to the cross, he's actually in a sort of embracing, hugging position in this cathedral. And you can see at the top, above the Jesus symbol, there are long wooden beams helping to structure that part of the cathedral. And on the outside, you have the more modern metal buildings. And this was only built in 1949, and it was refurbished in the early 2000s as well. I came in through the side where the main entrance wasn't, so I'm now going to walk out and show you a bit of the gardens outside. To my right here, there's a nice monument, and here's a closer look of it. And look at that beautiful orange butterfly. And this is the statue of Joseph himself, São José de Macapá. And I can see now the main entrance to the cathedral behind me, and it looks like this. Praça Floriano Peixoto, inaugurated in 1922. At the time it was called Praça do Sapo, or Lago do Sapo. Apologies for the noise, because of its swampy nature and the water source itself. But in 2009 it was urbanized and became more attractive for tourist visits. In 2017, with a new renovation, it gained a landscaped appearance with pedal boats and a deck in the shape of a guitar, a tribute to guitarist Nonato Leal. The last thing I want to do in Macapá is visit the Amazon River again, which is where I am. But today I'm going to walk out onto the pier, so I'm actually walking out over the Amazon River. And this pier behind me, there's a small one, and then there's a bigger one behind with some boats behind. And just in this one here, it's very muddy, and I've seen some sort of teenagers walking along this section just here behind me, and then they'll go under the bridge and actually swim in the water. I'm not sure This water is particularly clean. I'm not sure if I'd want to swim in here. They walk across this muddy area and then they go swimming under the bridge. So I'm now at the entrance to Trapiche Santa Ynez, which I believe is the Santa Ynez Pier. And I'm not 100% certain, but I believe maybe some of the boats here leave to depart through the Amazon in towards Manaus, Santarém, and through towards Peru. It looks like quite a nice pier. There's a boat restaurants to the left and some nice decorative walkthroughs. You can see the boats over there at the end of the pier. It's quite a nice cool breeze here, which helps in the 31-32 degree heat from the equator by the Amazon. And I'm now at the Amapa sign, the state where I am, and you can see here the walkway to the 3 boats, and it's only at sort of around where the end of the pier is, where the Amazon starts to go into full flow. It's almost like a sort of beach area here, compared to when I was further up where the equator line is, where the water is in full flow right by the side of the river. So this is probably the best place to show sort of, let's call it a muddy, wet beach area. The Amazon comes into Macapá, and I'm nearly at the end of the pier now. And these boats, I believe, are actually leaving from here to Santana, and I believe from Santana they part further on to Santarém and Manaus. This boat looks quite modern. For some reason the gate is, well, there is no gate. So I wouldn't walk left towards the end of the pier. And I'm about 5 seconds away from the end of the pier, sticking out into the Amazon River, the most famous river in the world, I assume. I'm here now. So in this direction it's going into the Atlantic, and in this direction it's going towards the Amazon rainforest, and through the Amazon rainforest to Colombia, Peru, on the other side of South America. And the equator line is the place I visited earlier, which is around maybe 2 kilometers in that direction. This is what the entrance to the Amazon looks like. This is the Rey Solomon 2. I'm going to try and show you a bit of the inside from what I can see from the outside in terms of the hammocks and their setting up. I'm sure if you can see in there the hammock set up, and there's looks like 2 floors for the passengers. Maybe the top floor as well. And these are the kind of boats with the open sides that sail through the Amazon, and I believe these boats take roughly, I want to say 20 days to cross from this side of the Amazon to the other side of the Amazon in South America. And I'm back here again at the Amapa sign, the state where Macapá is, and I thought this was a good place to wrap up my time here. I've actually quite enjoyed it, and I felt reasonably safe. I haven't really been approached by people, even though there's a homicide rate of over 70 per 100,000, and to compare, London has just over 1. But yeah, I've enjoyed it here, and the middle of the world is definitely very hot. The only thing left I've got to do now is walk back to my accommodation, which is around 90 minutes. Should have brought a cap.